Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at silver. It is time for another update, and we have formed a quite large correction already in what we were tracking as a potential initial 5-wave move to the upside. We haven't confidently broken the levels of support yet, but the proportions that are already in place within this correction aren't pointing in the favor of this to actually build an initial 5-wave pattern, and we need to make some updates in regards to the latest structure, the latest developments. But before we do that, let's provide the context for this chart, because it is quite important to understand where we would be within this larger trend. So, if we are to zoom out, we are still within a larger wave 3 to the upside, right? This would be a diagonal pattern we have been tracking, and this would have been the wave 1 up, the wave 2 down, and the wave 3 would be expected to actually extend even higher. This would be a strong preference for me. I do not see this pattern as complete, and against $57.6 I actually prefer one more high to take place within this structure. Then this would be the wave C, and this wave C would be an ending diagonal, and this wave 5 is all we expect to still form as part of this larger wave 3. Since this is an ending diagonal, we have to be aware that this wave 5 would only be expected to build an ABC structure itself. And this would still take us to new all-time highs, but we are not looking for a 5-wave pattern to be taking place within this structure. If we see a 5-wave pattern, we can safely expect to extend to even higher prices ultimately, but as it stands currently, we do not even have a confirmation that a wave 4 bottom would be in place. So what have we been tracking within this wave 4? Well, primarily it has been the idea of an ABC structure, but since it has broken the levels of resistance we were tracking internally for a wave C to be taking place, up to the 61.8% retracement, we had the strong conviction that we would not actually complete this as a wave C, that we would likely need to consider this to have taken place instead as a WXY pattern, or possibly where the wave B would have somehow topped here, right? If this was actually to build a wave C, we would have needed to build a 5-wave pattern in this area, and this has become something that couldn't really be the case anymore since we broke the 61.8% retracement, and we have even gotten rejected at that level before. In fact, we got rejected at pretty much every single one of the resistance levels along the way, the 38.2% retracement, the 50% retracement, and most recently the 78.6% retracement. That is actually the reason we have brought this level of resistance on the chart, because we have gotten previously rejected at these Fibonacci retracements as we were extending higher and higher, and this seems to have marked a quite significant top within this push to the upside that, again, unfortunately, I do not consider to be a reliable 5-wave pattern. Right? We have been considering this possibility of a leading diagonal, where we have been looking for this to potentially build a wave C. This is quite unlike the gold chart, where instead we had a lot more strength as we were pushing into higher prices, especially in the beginning of the wave 3 itself, because yeah, on the gold chart we see this as an initial 5-wave pattern, and we have the expectation to form a larger wave 2 correction before we ultimately extend to higher prices within a larger wave 3. Now, on the gold chart, we haven't reached this area of support. We still expect to extend to lower prices, which is quite important for what we will be tracking internally on the silver chart. So here, I cannot trust the orange interpretation too much any longer, because we have broken the levels of support for a wave B, right? A couple of times already, and it hasn't been a sustained break, which is why I am willing to still leave it on the chart, but the proportions are already telling a not so pretty story. And sure, I could look for this wave 1 to have topped elsewhere, and then this might even make sense to be a wave 3 complete in something like an A, B, C pattern. That could make sense, but it's not going to be the most clear setup, the most clear structure that we can trust at this point to extend even higher. Now, if you ultimately want to track the levels of support for such an interpretation, it would extend down to $72.6. We would have only touched the 50% retracement so far, and this would be our larger wave 4. The proportions of this correction would now make sense, but it requires a bit of forcing to make this count work, right? Because this is a quite extended supposed overshoot within a wave B. It's not even a so clear 3-wave pattern within the wave 1 any longer, and all of this to make this idea of a wave 5 take place. If we follow through within this as a larger count, I am willing to track a potential wave 1 to the upside. But what I would consider to be more likely at this point would probably have to be the idea of only having a 3-wave pattern in place, something like this. We have presented the count in the previous video, but the idea is we would have the support zone in yellow to allow us to look for the reversal. In such a structure, we have reached the $74 level. We can expect the reversal in the next wave to the upside to have already started, but it would still require some patience. We also have to consider that we have broken the channel we have been previously tracking, right? We were tracking this channel and we have broken the lower boundary. Now, this can work out as a throw under, where this would have been basically a fake out. But we have to consider the strong possibility, especially since on the gold chart we haven't yet reached the area of support, that this would instead be building a larger A, B, C structure in this development, right? We have this consideration to make and it is quite important. But we actually got, within a rather small time frame, an initial confirmation that a bottom might be in place, at least within the idea of a larger correction to be taking place in this structure. Why? Because we have an initial 5-wave move to the upside within what I could track as a wave 1. We have this 5-wave pattern, and we have a support zone that would allow us to still track continuation within at least one more high in the idea of an A, B, C structure. In this pattern, I can consider the support zone between $75.5 down to $74.4, where if we get a sustained break below the 78.6% retracement internally, well, that would be my signal that instead of seeing this succeed in forming an additional high at the very least, we would rather be quite convinced that this structure is going to extend directly lower in this larger support zone that is also in yellow, which sits between $74 down to $65.4. Now, in terms of the count itself, well, it is rather difficult. I could very easily even consider this to be something like a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 to be taking place. I would have to watch out for the resistance levels for a potential wave 4 that would be currently building, where we have already gotten into the 38.2% retracement, and I would have to watch the resistance levels between $75.4 up to $78. If we manage to get a break above the 61.8% retracement here, well, I will not be able to track any longer a potential initial 5-wave move to the downside. I'm not particularly set on getting this initial 5-wave move to the downside, but this is the pattern I would be watching for, where if we actually fulfill these expectations, I would need to consider that after a 3-wave correction, I can expect at the very least another 5-wave move to the downside within a larger wave 2 or wave B in this yellow area of support ultimately. Now, even in this scenario, I would be tracking, and let's say we track it within a different color since orange is still in play, I would still consider that within an internal wave 4, I would prefer to have another high, because I have only a 5-wave move to the upside, which does not fit within any complete corrective pattern, right? If we have an initial 5-wave move to the upside, it is being strongly suggested that after a 3-wave correction into the support zone, we would expect at least another 5-wave move to the upside. And that is why I am considering this smaller time frame yellow structure to be a potential trade setup. Be aware though that this is within a small time frame ultimately, and it might simply not work out. So for now, I will be tracking these resistance levels and these support levels, where I know below $74.4 we have a strong indication that we would be directly extending to even lower prices. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoyed the content and want to support it directly, check out the channel membership. And other than that, let me know what else you would like me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I wish you a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.